and ultimately, like on it, I'm like looking at my pile of dirty laundry here. There's like some socks there.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Disc Connected. I'm here with Ariel Esteban Cayer, who is one of the individuals behind Kani Releasing. Ariel, thank you for coming on here. This has been such a treat to be able to see you.
Hi Ryan, thank you for having us. It's going to be me today, or you're usually a two-person operations, and then Pearl is can make it, but she's the brain, so I'll do my best.
Well, I'll consider that for next time. So what is the relationship between you and Pearl?
We're married, actually.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it's a true mom and pop, label, if you will, between her and I. We've both been working in film for a very long time. I've been a film programmer for almost a decade with the Fantasia Film Festival in Montreal, and Pearl has been doing film sales for Good Move Media, which is sort of the step that gets a film from a distribution to a production to a distributor all over the world. And so we knew each other through that, and sort of connected, and then eventually wanted to sort of bring both of our sort of brains together for this project, during I'm sure we can get into that in a bit.
And currently, I believe you said you guys are in Hong Kong. Is that correct?
We are, yeah.
Wow. So I do have one interview that I've done with an individual in Hong Kong, and because it seems like the experiences for everybody is just so different. Can you share perhaps some of the things that have been a little more limited because you're doing this from Hong Kong and getting things released in the States? Is there anything that's been difficult due to that?
No. I mean, actually, we're incredibly happy and kind of blessed to be here, especially relating to this specific kind of work that we want to do with Kani. We're releasing Asian films, so for us it makes perfect sense to be in this part of the world and be in this time zone. Increasingly also wanting and planning to release Hong Kong films. And so, no, it just makes perfect sense to be in the city for that. And I don't think we would have been able to do the kind of work that we've been doing to the extent that we've been doing it. We're both Canadian originally, so from Canada or from the U.S. Right. Though, in conceptualizing the project and conceptualizing the sort of label, it was kind of evident that we wanted to distribute in North America, being kind of, I don't know, for myself, having sort of grown up in that sort of film ecosystem, and also maybe physical media ecosystem as well. We kind of wanted to be a part of that. But no, I think it plays to our advantage to be here for sure.
Well, speaking on that ecosystem, you have just flourished in the eyes of me and at least a handful of others that I know are big fans of Kani, with this partnership with OCN and likewise with Vinegar Syndrome. Can you share how that started for you?
Totally. I think we were thinking about how to do it, like how to start Kani as an idea. It was going to be like a zine for a while, and then it was going to be like a newsletter for a bit, and at some point it turned into like a Blu-ray label, and now it's a more kind of a distribution company. So yeah, as there's like the sort of the limitations of starting a business or there's things you need to meet, requirements you need to meet. And so we were trying to figure out, like, how do we do this? Do we manufacture everything here and sort of, fulfill out of our house and, so on and so forth. And it quickly became, that was the hurdle. The sort of what is the model that we find, and then
Right.
I mean, I had been a fan of Vinegar Syndrome for a long time as well. And so, and we had common friends within the industry and things like that. And so we kind of investigated a bit, like who would be a good partner for such a project at such a scale. And of course, OCN, became very quickly the kind of a good candidate for that.
Yeah.
I think at the time when we were kind of starting, maybe Fun City was one of them. It was like they had a few labels, and we signed on quite early. Though it did take us a bit of time to sort of get going, and now of course it's grown into something quite incredible. So
to a behemoth.
Yeah. And so quite happy to sort of have been there in the early stages as well of that. Yeah.
Nice. So I got to ask, we see it on all of the product listing pages. Can you share where the name Kani comes from and why you chose that as the name of the label?
Yeah. So Kani is a Japanese word meaning crab, or fake crab, which is actually kind of important to the name too. So either an actual crab or like crab stick, something like that. But most importantly, it's also the nickname that Ozu Yasujiro gave his tripod, his little cute orange 3-legged tripod that he got made specifically to be able to capture the sort of tatami shots that are so emblematic of his cinema. They're so the sort of tatami level, ground level. And the name, and we wanted a name also that, Mubi, Kino, like sort of short, punchy name
right.
that, people could remember. And so the name kind of stuck in our minds for that reason. And also, I mean, I'm a huge Ozu fan, and that whole, era of sort of post-war Japanese cinema was really kind of, my way in to film, really, as a teenager, whether it's Ozu, Kurosawa, Mizoguchi, all of that, the work that Criterion have been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, a connection to that, but also kind of, taking this idea of a human level, street level, tatami level tripod as a sort of emblem of what we're trying to do, which is to, showcase maybe Asian films that are not necessarily that don't fit in boxes that already exist from a Western perspective, right? So I think, in North America, we're used to, kung fu films maybe, or something, Asian horror, or there's all these kind of traditions or marketing boxes that have been kind of explored, and that have become de facto what is maybe, as a result, have become what is considered important. And so we wanted to sort of offer a bit of a counterbalance to that. What if we released Japanese rom-coms? What if we went, towards Filipino cinema? What if we, explored Japanese 80s filmmaking, which tends to be a bit, increasingly kind of people are paying attention, but tends to be kind of ignored. And so the name made sense for all these kinds of reasons at once.
I love that. And it feels like that genuine propping up of something important. And
thank you.
Watching these discs, I apologize in advance because I am probably going to come off as gushing on some of this. I am mystified by the films that have been released by Kani throughout this entire thing, and I am impressed and happy and thrilled that two people have found it so important to share these important stories with a Western mind, that many of these have likely either never been seen by hardly anybody, or they've literally been forgotten. Some of them had been, played decades prior, but I mean, there's so much that I could possibly get into, but I just want to show everybody that the films that they've put out so far, literally every single one, because this label has been immaculate to me. some questions off the cuff here. Restorations. Are you guys doing the restorations yourself, or is that mostly done in the home country of the film, or how has that been playing out for you?
So at the moment, we've mostly been licensing restorations, and that's something that we've, you know, it's always a question for us, or always a concern, which is to say, I guess I can get into the story of sort of Cain and Abel, right, which was our second release, and which really opened this question up for us. I think historically there's been, this demand, for restorations on the Blu-ray market, or just on the sort of restoration market, that leans towards, work being done in certain labs, whether in Europe or in North America. And so when came time to work on Cain and Abel and to license Cain and Abel, we realized this is a film that has been restored in the Philippines locally for a local audience and a local industry. Amazing film. However, perhaps the restoration is not to the standard that we are used to for a myriad of reasons, actually, chiefly being, resources available, but also materials available, and the context in which those materials are kept, by which I mean, a tropical country in which, the humidity is like on average 97 and it's like 40 degrees most of the year. Things decay much faster, paper, let alone celluloid. And so it kind of very early on in the sort of process of working on the label kind of opened up this question, right? Of, who would release Cain and Abel, or rather, like, is it a case in which we work with the companies locally, or do we wait for a hypothetical, American or European investor to come in and restore this again, or wait, potentially years for us to have the means to do it ourselves. There's all these questions. And so we decided to, in a way, test it and kind of, see, what we want to work with in this case, ABS-CBN, who are a local broadcaster in the Philippines, who have been doing, frankly, have been doing really great work in preserving a lot of the film history and the film culture in the Philippines, sort of against the grain or against the direction of even the sort of the industry, and what the industry tends to favor, which is quick returns on new films and so on. And so it was really important for us to work with them and to sort of also maybe educate audiences a little bit in that there are limitations sometimes, and it doesn't mean that films need to be lost, to these sort of Western European standards. That being said, it doesn't mean that we're not also looking for kind of the best, restorations available. It was more a question of thinking through these issues for us. And so we approach each project in this way, sort of case by case basis. Of course, if it's a contemporary film, then there's no use for restoration. Some restorations we've been able to sort of commission ourselves, and then some other things we've just licensed outright. So it's a mix, and we hope that with enough discs and enough time, we'll be able to kind of start some projects from scratch as well, which actually we're already working on. So that's exciting.
Nice. So how has the response been to the Cain and Abel restoration?
Actually, I think good. So that was the big. I mean, you tell me, right? Because that was the. We were very anxious, actually,
right?
Because the Blu-ray market is obviously a little unforgiving sometimes, and I spend time on DVD Beaver as much as anyone else, and comparing transfers and frames and so on and so forth, and so we were a bit like, how are people going to react to maybe a bit of warping or a bit of leftover kind of defects that the budget of the specific restoration maybe did not allow
Right.
to go, or maybe actually the limitations of the material itself didn't quite allow to fix. And I think that, frankly, I think the film was received very, very warmly, and with the understanding again of what these limitations may be. And I think for us, it was kind of this, a stepping stone into starting things from scratch more, or finding, interesting projects that really, deserve to be put out, from local sources.
And I think that's how I have tried to approach most of these, because it's, first off, it's very easy to sit and nitpick individual frames that you see on somebody's reference website. That gets old, it gets annoying to be so negative. I try never to do that. But with something like this, it's really hard to watch something and go, this was just such crap, when in all reality, I likely never would have been able to see this piece of art if I was waiting for a better restoration. So
Yeah.
It's just been a gift, and everything that you guys have put out has been just touched with this air of like, how is this not an unknown masterpiece? It's amazing.
That's good to hear. I think that's a bit of the idea. It's a bit of the goal. Sorry. We have this thing internally, which is to say, we try to do things that others wouldn't do.
Right.
When you license films, when you acquire films, in a way, you can go in any direction that you want to go in, and as a curator myself, as a film programmer, and certainly Pearl as a sales agent, we're very aware of these dynamics in which, habits create demand, and sort of and repetition creates habits, and so on and so forth. And so we just announced Bullets Over Summer, which is a Hong Kong action film, and we love it. And for us, it was a special kind of bullet ballet, heroic bloodshed type of
Right.
Hong Kong film from the late 90s. But we also don't want to kind of do 12 of those, because
Right.
There would be a whole year of that, and we have other, kind of areas that we want to touch on. And so I think, to what you're saying, it's like there's always a goal, understanding what, how many discs we can put out, and within that, what do we want to do? Which is to say, we want everyone to kind of every disc to feel different, every disc to feel kind of special in this way, surprising maybe, and hopefully, if people give it a chance, it's something that they've never seen or never kind of thought to go after necessarily.
Is there a sense of an underlying theme that Kani shoots for with every release, you think?
I mean, a bit of if there's a through line to the curation, it's a bit of that, that X factor, the sort of thing where, you come for a certain thing, but you stay for something else,
Right.
This idea that, I think a lot of our films, and this is maybe to sort of our taste, is I think a lot of our films sort of straddle the line between art house and genre and commercial cinema and sort of auteur cinema.
Certainly. Yeah.
They all sort of kind of do away with those distinctions in a really interesting way. They play with expectation in an interesting way, or genres which is to say genres in an interesting way. And I think that it's not something that we kind of engineered, but it's something that I think just through our sort of, our taste just being the only thing that structures the choices.
Right.
I think that has become a through line, a bit of a surprise factor, a bit of an unexpected pitch every time, right? It's an office comedy, but it's also a musical about mental health and other and loneliness, right. Or here are two kind of Japanese punk film from the 80s, but they're also incredibly colorful and sort of and I'll also say this, like, I guess that the other through line has been to have films that feel very local, to
Yes.
wherever they were made, whatever culture they come from, whether it's Japan or the Philippines. And I mean that in the sense that these are films that, might take a bit of explaining, right? Like there's elements in them that might take a bit of contextualization and might take a bit of program notes and essays to sort of unpack, because they deal with, whether it's sort of societal or industrial sort of concerns or political concerns that are very local to wherever they're from. And I think in having that in mind, or gravitating towards these kinds of work, we've found ourselves also showing films that are kind of Asian in this broader context.
Yes.
Right? If you take something like What's Up Connection, which bridges the gap between Japan and Hong Kong, Osaka and Hong Kong, and even so, right? It's not a Tokyo movie; it's an Osaka movie.
Right.
You have to know Osaka. You have to explain what these neighborhoods are like, what they mean in the context of Osaka, and same for Hong Kong. It's not necessarily the Hong Kong of John Woo. It's a very specific Hong Kong that requires some contextualization and so on, right? And so I think that is something that has emerged, where I feel like all of our films contribute something, I think, hopefully to people's understanding of what Asian cinema can be and the kind of sort of themes and problematics that it kind of explores. Right?
Well, one aspect that I will absolutely give great feedback is that locality comes through, and something that I've gravitated towards all of these is there's this underlying sense of identity, perhaps. Just pretty much every single story has somebody struggling with who they are as a person and trying to define where they fit in their family or their town, or continuing familial traditions, or so many different things. Like, again, this off the wall satire musicals that come out of nowhere, and you're just like, something about this, it feels similar to the other stories, because just as an ignorant white boy Westerner like myself, I have been very, very sheltered, and it's through a lot of these stories that I can absorb other cultures and realize what I've been missing. And without the gift of some of these films, I would never be able to see some of these tiny neighborhoods out in the middle of Southeast Asia that it's like traveling the world. And I'm so grateful that you guys are doing this.
That's great to hear. That's really great to hear. Yeah, hopefully it does a bit of that, and I think that, if we're doing one thing, I hope that we're kind of pushing people's boundaries a little bit in terms of just film and what that means also for the Blu-ray ecosystem, Blu-ray market.
One thing I got to ask is, especially with Robinson's Garden, which I will hold up because I love this cover art. This is gorgeous. And then with What's Up Connection, you guys seem to be pushing theatrical pretty hard for both of these. How's that been playing for everybody?
I think it's been going well, or it's been going quite. We've been surprised, to be honest. It's our first theatrical release. We wanted to test it out, right? We kind of we'll explore that in the future, how we do things, but as we did it, we kind of like did the Blu-ray first and did the sort of theatricals kind of like simultaneously, thinking, this is kind of atypical. However, will it work? And it being our first time and us being kind of an unknown quantity in that world. And I want to say that, the response has been really, really positive in that people find the film in theater. And not only that, is even if they do miss the film for whatever reason, they come back to us, and then the sort of the interest is lit, and they come back to us, and we've had a lot of positive comments or intrigued people that we can then point to the disc and have people discover the film in that way. And so that's been really interesting to also see that interplay between theatrical and home video, which I'm teaching no one nothing here, but for us it was a bit of a discovery as a young company, and so I think that we will push forward with certain films being released theatrically depending on what the title might be, or how we might want to position it, and sort of kind of keep doing that for certain titles. For the two Masashi Yamamoto films, it sort of came organically because we had such a great working relationship with Yamamoto himself, the director, who, by the way, commissioned these restorations himself and entrusted us with them, and so we feel very honored and very grateful that he let us kind of take his babies and sort of work on them in this way, and it's just been a great honor to be able to sort of give them a new face and a new identity and sort of launch them in the world again. They're films that I think are incredibly special, and he's I'm glad he's getting a bit of his due. And Connor Williamson did. I mean, I have to shout him out, but he did an incredible job on those two covers. He's a dear friend from Montreal, actually, and
nice
to be able to work with him on this has been amazing.
I imagine Robinson's Garden would play very well in a theater, and I wish it was playing near me. If it ever does, I'm going to make an opportunity to go see it for sure.
Yeah, I've been shocked, and I'm not shocked, but I've been really amazed by also the reaction to What's Up Connection, which frankly I would have expected Robinson's to be the one, but people gravitate to What's Up in an amazing way, and I'm very, very happy.
Interesting. Well, speaking of gravitating to things, I imagine that there's probably one or two of these that are something that are very near and dear to you that people don't seem to be discovering at the clip that they should be.
Sure.
Are there some of these that you think are the most underseen that are super deserving of somebody taking a look at if they're watching this?
I mean, I think people should check out Sellout, which I have right here.
And I've got right here.
Sellout is an incredible Malaysian film that I've had on my mind for a long time. It went to the Venice Film Festival back in the day. This was something that my colleagues kind of before me at the Fantasia Film Festival were huge champions of as well. And Junan hasn't he had a great run with the film, a great festival run, but then kind of nothing came of that, and for a sort of variety of reasons, rights reasons, and others sort of locally, the film had been kept sort of under wraps for quite a long time, for 15 years, and so this was one of the things that we wanted to sort out. We wanted to figure out a way to release Sellout again, and with it, we really went all out, and kind of wanted to create a really deluxe package for this movie that no one seemed to have heard of, except a very specific kind of niche of like Asian film programmers and festival goers from 15 years ago. But it always struck me as a sort of a very special, not only example of like Malaysian cinema, but a kind of very personal counter program to a lot of what Malaysian cinema was at the time, which was usually quite slow and quite self-serious in these ways, and really nothing against those films, but I think that Junan kind of saw that and wanted to like run hard in the other direction, and make something, make a musical for one, and make something kind of irreverent and audacious in these ways that would also kind of dare to comment on the state of film industry and the state of sort of corporate Kuala Lumpur, and fold all these things together in a way that to this day remains really fresh and really unique. And frankly, nothing else has come out of I think of Malaysia that quite feels in this this way since. He's shooting a new feature soon, which I don't know if I should say, but and it certainly has nothing to do with her disc. But I'm hoping that the time has come for sort of Junan's films and filmmaking to sort of have a bit more attention, and hopefully that release can do that for him.
Awesome. Yeah, Sellout is It's very unique. I will go with that. It is a singular film that all of these obviously are ones that people should be checking out, but Sellout is certainly one that sticks out. I feel like Video Phobia has not gotten the attention that I personally want it
That's true.
to. It's
Yeah,
a
we can.
fun thing to tell people about and see how they respond to it.
Yeah, we can. Video phobia. I had been working with Daisuke Miyazaki for a couple years, helping him or to try to get his films to festivals and things like that, and or just noticing his work, and that too. I think we when we started the project, we wanted to do two things, which was of course tap into the sort of restoration landscape and release older films, but
Yeah.
also release films in a way that would directly benefit young filmmakers working now,
Yeah.
which requires the kind of risk taking in terms of okay, let's release a small Japanese indie on disc and see how that goes.
Yeah.
It's gone well. It's gone okay. Like we're able to continue, which is all that we ask for. But I agree with you. I wish more people would give it the chance. Though I understand that maybe newer films might kind of be a bit of a for some people be a bit more of a risk in that
Right.
I think like a lot of the audience, myself included, like we always wait for kind of time to validate something, but yeah, Videophobia, Ode to Nothing, certainly. I think that these are examples of contemporary genre, Asian genre, Japanese and Filipino genre cinema that are well worth digging into.
Well, an Ode to Nothing was the focus of a CNN Philippines article that came out about Kani that it seemed to get passed around quite a bit, and I'm glad it got some attention there. But yeah, it's one of those films that if you just take that chance and risk it, you are going to find something pretty much for everybody to relate to in that movie.
Yeah, no, I mean I think so, and it was a huge. I mean, I think it's hard to kind of explain away, how big the movie was locally,
Yeah.
and on the festival circuit that year, certainly. And that's how that just so happens to be how it works, and it is unfortunate, right? It's like these things will burn bright for about a year and a half, and I see it all the time, programming films for festivals, which is to say, you find
Yeah.
something incredible. I remember kind of watching Oda Sawala or Ode to Nothing for the first time, and I remember watching Being Natural for the first time, which was actually a film that had been submitted to us blind, from the submission pile, and I still remember kind of jumping on the couch, being like, yes, this is singular and exciting, and maybe not to everybody, but certainly to me, and then the film. These independent films might burn bright for a while on the circuit, maybe a year or so, and then don't necessarily find distribution. Certainly not abroad. And so Kani was always sort of idea about how do we remedy that somewhat. Like to the extent of what we can do. How do we help these filmmakers who have become friends and these films or not, right? Or these films that we find that we want to kind of prop up in this way. And I think that has brought half of our curation in the sort of direction of this sort of independent space that on the flip side requires some risk taking from the audience.
I am always I don't know, baffled, I guess, by people that don't understand how many films go through the film festival process each year, because there are just countless. I mean, nowadays there are countless film festivals, period, but each one has their own unique slate. And the hard part, especially with distribution deals behind some of these independents, is if they just happen to fly under the radar, that individual filmmaker may literally live or die based on the response to that film as a filmmaker. So they may never get an opportunity again if it just so happens to fall through the cracks. And companies like this, or like TerrorVision in the United States, that are trying to pick up films that went, maybe they didn't win the film festival, or maybe they did, they've just been forgotten. It can change so many things for some of these young filmmakers that it can light the world on fire for them. And so I'm just grateful. Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so. It's hard to measure the direct impact that it has, but for us, it's also about these films sort of subsisting or surviving in a sort of in a sort of cinephile memory, whatever that may be. And so it's to have the film circulate. It's to have the films, it's not about selling out of the print run of the disc right away. It's more so about, having those discs end up in public libraries eventually, or,
right.
The few video stores that are left. It's also about people stumbling on them 10 years down the line when, when media is even harder to find, or whatever. I'm not gonna speculate on
right.
the future, but you know what I mean, right? The same way that you still stumble to this day, hopefully, if you're that kind of person, on sort of like an old DVD of something, and you're like,
yeah,
shit, I've never heard of this.
I gotta get this. Yeah,
I gotta see this. I still, I'm of a certain age, but I guess that I still grew up in that ecosystem of literally, physically going somewhere, whether the library or the video store, and browsing and looking and having things catch my eye. And so, yeah, it is about that ultimately, right? It's about having the films survive as more than a sort of IMDb listing.
What a great way to put it. Yeah, there's a lot of these deserve a legacy, and not just something that you Google because you recognize an actor, basically.
Totally.
One of the things that are more important about a lot of these that I have to commend Kani on and get your take on is something that you brought up a little earlier, and that is this limited package that comes with each of these that provides just this massive amount of context. Some of these are coming with like 8 or 9 interviews on a couple of these. You've got great commentaries. The writing and the booklets are so important for, again, I'll put myself down happily because I'm so sheltered, but this random nobody from the middle of the Midwest in the US that wants to learn about these other cultures. Without that context, these movies are going to fly right over my head. But because it's this entire package, it digs into my soul and finds a place for me to go, damn, I'm learning. I'm expanding my appreciation just for the human form because of what this company is providing. So I know that's a huge lead in. What all do you put into the context behind these films? Because it's so important to the value on Western cinema.
Sure. Yeah, like I said earlier a little bit, I think we try to contextualize every release with regards to, of course, the themes it's exploring, the sort of industry it's coming from, and the distinctive sort of film traditions that it's coming from. I think that requires, work as much as possible, working with local, and when I say local to the places, local writers, local artists or commentators, whether that's on a Hong Kong release, or a Filipino release. I think especially for Filipino films, I think there's so few labels releasing Filipino films. It's incredibly important for us to platform Filipino artists and Filipino writers and just seek out those collaborators that would have input and that would have information and context that we maybe do not have ourselves, right? And I think that's just the sort of baseline, the bottom line. Of course, once in a while, we'll have an American or Canadian or whatever writer write about a Japanese film or something like that. That's not to sort of exclude, but it's really just to kind of do our best to find the the better or the best voice to sort of speak to something. And that's really like a disc by disc, case by case basis. Sometimes we're able to pull together more things, sometimes less. We produced discs during COVID that we had to do sort of Zoom interviews on, that now we look at them, we're like, oh man, like we're gonna get like, but like we're also kind of learning and perfecting the formula as we go, and hopefully that shows, and hopefully people have some patience for that as well, and some love for that as well. So kind of a disc by disc, project by project basis, for sure.
Sometimes you even write in the booklet yourself, and it turned out really good.
I have. I mean, I've been a film critic, film writer for a bit myself as well, and so if I feel like I can contribute something, I prefer not to. In this case, it's kind of just a division of sort of your brain. Right. But if I feel like I should, then maybe I will. And sort of trying to do that a bit also for Vinegar Syndrome and so on. And so case by case.
Kani took a few months off, and from December up until April 1st, we got some radio silence, and now you're back, and we are finally able to see Bullets Over Summer from Wilson Yip as the next title. Can you tell everybody about Bullets Over Summer and why this is a Kani title?
Absolutely. So this is like my favorite kind of movie, right? Which is like on the surface looks like something, which is to say, it's called Bullets Over Summer. It was made in Hong Kong in 1999. You have Louis Quinn and Francis Ng, kind of as a buddy cop, tough guy duo. So you expect something, right? You expect heroic bloodshed and cops and robbers stuff. We've seen those movies, and
of course,
and we all love those films. And I think that going into Bullets Over Summer, both Pearl and I were kind of blown away by what Wilson Yip does, and you have to kind of contextualize it, right? It's 1999, which is already sort of the tail end of a sort of Hong Kong golden age of film, and this is a very young Wilson Yip, sort of coming into his career as I want to say an exploitation filmmaker, right? He was kind of making these schlocky horror films or comedies that for very little money, and then sort of building up his career into this space where he was able to have just a bit more budget and slowly inch towards what he really kind of wanted to do, which was make action films. As we've seen from SPL and Ip Man, that's really the sort of the zone in which he wants to be working. Not Motorway, that's Sir Chang, but that's sort of really the zone that he wanted to work in. And so Bullets Over Summer really kind of struck us as this film in which a young, very inventive, up-and-coming director gets a gig to make an action movie that he doesn't necessarily maybe have the whole budget for that he would want. So he's forced to be incredibly inventive with it, which is to say, and I'm not gonna kind of reveal too much, but which is to say that it's a movie that kind of sets something up and then really surprises with the sort of direction that it goes in, and the sort of tension that it builds from that,
nice.
And the sort of expectation that you might have for a Hong Kong cop movie or a Hong Kong action movie. I think it's really smart, and I think it's really funny and surprising again. And so this was kind of a clear, we did Viva Erotica as a Hong Kong film too.
Yeah.
We wanted to get into that zone of the sort of Hong Kong films that we love, and Bullets for us felt like the perfect Trojan horse, which is come for something, stay for something else, and at the same time you get all of that sort of cool Hong Kong vibes that this sort of that are so unique to that cinema from the late 90s, and whether you're thinking like Made in Hong Kong or Chungking Express, all that sort of era, that it's really like the bee's knees. So we wanted to get into that zone, and I think Bullets is a perfect film in that way.
Nice. I'm very curious to see what you write on that as well, because you're in the booklet again for that one, right?
Yeah. It's. I mean, I shouldn't minimize, but it's less of an intricate essay and more of a bit of an introduction into the interview, the archival interview with Wilson Yip that's in the book. But I think we put together a really nice little booklet that I think contextualizes just again this sort of where the film was sort of emerging from for Wilson Yip at the time. He had just done Biozombie, which Vinegar Syndrome released recently, and then went into Bullets Over Summer with the same screenwriter, and again a sort of lightning in a bottle moment where you have a creative collaborator with which you can kind of play on these genre formulas, right? Oh, how do we do a zombie film in Hong Kong and with a very small budget? Oh, how do we do in sort of action, like a John Woo type action film or something with very limited means, and so in that way, I think those films are quite special, and we also like we're also stoked about the sort of synergy that we were able to get there with Biozombie and all of that.
So I'm sure you can't quite reveal, but any chance that Juliet and Love get some love from a label soon?
Frankly, I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see. It'd be great. It'd be great for someone or for ourselves to complete the trilogy there, the Matt Chow Wilson Yip trilogy. Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Speaking of that, obviously ABS-CBN has been close for you guys. You've done a lot with them. Is there a whole lot more coming in that deal, or is that are you going to be branching out further than that soon, or what's the biggest plan with them in the future?
Yes and yes. Yeah, we have more things coming up with ABS-CBN that we're really, really proud of. Actually, we're just finalizing something right now, which might give you an idea of the timeline. We're extremely proud with that, and we're going to keep working with them. And in the meantime, we're also trying to develop other collaborations and relationships with regards to Filipino film with other Filipino companies, but also trying to find other Filipino films maybe scattered all around the world. So that's as much as I'll say about that. But it's definitely something that we're super passionate about exploring some more and sort of doing right by. I think Filipino cinema, of course, is. I think I was just for my own reference, kind of looking at how many Filipino films have been released on disc in the U.S., and I think it's like a dozen.
Jeez.
At most, and so and three of two of which are ours, and so we really think that other labels should take notice, and hopefully we can be part of that impetus or that movement towards releasing more Filipino film in North America.
Well, hopefully this can be the call out, because they've been great so far, and I hope that we are able to see more. And I mean, that's also a good question too, I guess, is with I mean, everybody knows Asia is big, but Asia is not just big. Asia is massive. There's so many different localized cinematic havens in so many different corners. You guys have focused a lot on like Southeast East Asia with some of these, even though they're underseen. Are there, other geographical locations that you're planning on focusing on soon? Anything that you can tease on that? Because there's so much out there.
Sure. We've been trying to make deals in Korea as well as Thailand to sort of expand in that direction. I don't want to expand. It sounds terribly corporate, but
I get it.
Expand the slate in that direction. And so for us, I think you have to sort of keep working in that same mold of reintroducing films that have had a huge impact locally, whether they're considered classics or cult classics in any way, or contemporary kind of touchstones. Right. Certainly Thailand has a great cinematic history that that tends to maybe, I think maybe in the early 2000s, people were more aware of it than they are now. But certainly, trying to do that and trying to work on Korean films as well, which we have a huge love for. And so we'll see where that takes us. It's always a work in progress as far as what is possible, but hopefully you'll see something from there very soon.
Nice. Out of the slate so far, if you have one, what is Ariel's favorite film from these?
Oh
what do we
gosh.
have? Are we at 9? Yeah, 9
We are at
releases so
9.
far.
Yeah. Well, 10 with
10 with summer. Yeah.
I want to say maybe the one that gets me the most excited or the most proud, perhaps. We talked about Sellout quite a bit, and that's certainly the way the whole package came together, and what we were able to put on it, and the art and all of that made it feel really, really special to us. But very close to that as well is What's Up Connection, which again, I think that this is like the one of the ballsiest kind of covers that anyone making cover for movies could make.
Yep.
Incredibly intricate and virtuoso, really. So when that art came back, I knew we had something very special. And then Pearl had this great idea to sort of build this map in the booklet, and which I think really gives this release a kind of special little edge, which is to say that here's a map of Hong Kong and here's where the movie takes place, and sometimes it's a bit nonsensical, frankly, but it also gives you an idea of what the fishing village in which the film is set, how remote that is and how unlike a lot of other Hong Kong films that might be. And so I just love how this came together, and the movie being this sort of Japanese film shot in Hong Kong, bridging both our sort of loves for both Japanese films from the sort of Tsukamoto, Sogoishi, Yamamoto tradition into a sort of landscape that we're very familiar with and that we love, and shot in Cantonese, which is Pearl's mother tongue, and so we felt so close to that film in so many ways, and in the ways that it just it perfectly kind of encapsulates all these things. And so I just love how the project came together, and fake credit card, and nice.
I was about to say, you can't talk about this and not bring this up, because one thing that sticks out on these is pretty much every single release so far has had something unique that just makes you go, I'm never going to forget this. So you might be looking back, which one is that? Oh yeah, it was the one with the tortoise sticker. Yeah, I know what movie that was. So there's so many just neat little intricacies that has been a part of this label from the beginning, that you guys just seem to be doing everything in a unique, really like a way to grab onto people that seem to align with your taste. And it's just a gift. I'm just so appreciative.
Thank you. Yeah, we've just been wanting to make these stand out in a way, which maybe it doesn't translate fully always, but I think that it's like that's what we're working on secretly. It's like we're trying to work like we released socks, and we're kind of like giving them to people, and it's become like a secret handshake kind of thing. And ultimately, like I'm like looking at my pile of dirty laundry here. There's like some socks there, but like ultimately, that's like the long game. It's like building the secret society, secret handshake type of thing, where if like if you've been following us from the beginning, and you've been getting the stickers and enjoying the booklets and the films, and like we're trying to build a group of people that care about these things, and sort of trying to do it in such a way where if we only do 20 discs or 30, eventually, who knows, then every one of them will have been, have had a bit of, as you say, a little something special, or a little hand drawn logo for the sake of it. Things like that.
It has been wonderful to see the growth and the changes that you guys have been going through. I mean, again, you brought up the art, but I think it's really hard to stress like how much something like these two, when you go on Vinegar Syndrome and these pop up with 12 other partner labels, these are going to stick out and go, okay, I have to see what this movie is, and why is it not in my cart yet? You guys have just crushed it on the art, and again, like I said, it's too much gushing almost, but it's just been an immaculate way to start out.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I don't know what else.
Thank you. One more thing I was going to ask. Obviously, you've done a lot with film programming. Do you feel that there's so much aligned, perhaps, with curating for a label and curating for a film festival? Because they have different missions, but obviously you're hoping each are successful. Do you feel similarities there?
To an extent, for sure. Like, I think it's almost a sort of, I mean, not to get too hoity-toity, but like it's almost like a discipline in which you're always kind of looking out for interesting or new work. And again, I mean, interesting to who? Interesting to you, therefore hoping that it's interesting to an audience.
Yep.
And to just try to be that sort of conduit between filmmakers and an audience. And so, some of the choices with Kani definitely have grown out of the curation for Fantasia. Being Natural is a film that, like I said, I programmed there. Ode to Nothing as well, and Tremble All You Want as well. These are films that, I worked on sort of seasonally as a programmer, and they kind of stuck to my mind for many years. And when came time to do the label, it was like, we could do these. It'd be great. And so you build on these relationships, and you build on these. You have to trust yourself that if they stuck to your mind, there's a reason for that. If you're thinking about these films, not only 2, 3, 4 years later, but also hundreds of films later, right? Because we're always watching, we're always looking and searching. Then you have to trust that there might be something there that other people will also relate to. Which is also kind of silly to say, because something like Tremble, is a big commercial release in Japan,
Yep.
right? It doesn't need me or us to be successful. But Akiko Oku, I think, again, aside from very specific niche kind of cinephile circles, it wasn't a household name in the West in the way that maybe I wish she was. And so the similarities are in the way that you sort of hopefully never keep being curious or never keep looking for work, which I think as soon as you kind of start a sort of curation label or a Blu-ray label, then you also have to do kind of backwards as well, right? So it's both, for us, it's both a sort of forward-looking thing in terms of new filmmakers and a sort of history-facing component, right, in which we look at film history and go, and think to ourselves, what are the areas here that, or the geographies or the localities that we feel maybe are a bit underserved or could use some work, frankly, just the work of meeting people, reaching out to people, talking and getting these things sort of, even the idea started. Oh, we could re-release this, and maybe it would do quite well. And to try, and most importantly, it is to try and not to sort of live in that sort of paradigm in which, only a certain type of film is successful or fit for release, right, or, whatever else. Yeah.
That is a great way to put that, because, again, you guys are acting as a conduit for some of these. There is no gateway from, Japan to the Western world. And with the way rights are... Go ahead.
Oh, a lot of labels are doing incredible work, of course, licensing out of Japan. But I think it's just about bringing a different flavor,
For sure.
or to that conversation, and we're well aware of our limitations too, and so the hope is that um, the hope is that it kind of maybe has other labels realize, um, that there's a way forward for this. Please don't take all the films from us, but but that being said, it's not about that. It's really about like creating the space for smaller, kookier, weirder,
Right.
stranger films to sort of exist in that ecosystem. And so if it can have a long, sort of effect, then hopefully, I'd be really happy with that. I'd be delighted with that.
Well, and we kind of touched on it earlier in the conversation, but there are certain genres that don't get any love outside of the home countries. I mean, you brought up early on, like Japanese romances. There are thousands of those that
Absolutely.
nobody's licensing. Nobody in the Western world is putting out a string of Japanese romance films, and
Yeah,
something like Kani could do that.
Absolutely. And so, you ask yourself why that is. And I'm not sure, but again, you create these niches over time and over, dictating what is important and what is
right.
valuable. And so if Japanese film can, in the West is only means samurai films and maybe like a couple like gangster yakuza or gangster films. And again, I'm like the biggest Seijun Suzuki fan out there, as along with anyone else. But like nothing against those films necessarily. It's just that if you kind of perpetuate that mindset, then you're maybe closing yourself off to a lot of possibilities, right? And
Exactly.
so that's really just it. Trying to open up the canon, so to speak, of what might be an interesting film.
And the truth of the matter is, it is a risk, obviously, if nobody's putting out one of these underlying genres that's not getting any love. But if you find the right movie and it hits, suddenly 7 labels might be fighting for those titles and be putting them out as well.
Well, I hope not. Yeah, keep with the kung fu. Just don't, But no, I'm and again, we'd be delighted to release one of these, but as well.
Right.
But it's just, I think it's not so much a competition again as a sort of supplementing and hopefully it's just emboldening others to think in these areas as well. It really is just about what you kind of you give attention to, or what you kind of throw your attention to, and resources at, and yeah, we'll see hopefully hopefully there's a good interesting change or something.
All right, my friend. Last thing before I let you start tackling the work week in Hong Kong. Any teases for the future? Any broad strokes that you can say? A certain genre, maybe number of releases for the rest of the year?
Sure. So, we did 9 releases last year, and I think we're going to be doing a bit less than that this year for a couple of reasons, but we're trying to kind of find a good pace in terms of really making every release feel special. Coming up, how can I put this? You'll be seeing a lot more Filipino films from us. Really exciting classic Filipino filmmaking from the 70s very soon. We have a couple of Chinese language releases coming up as well. One mainland Chinese film and a Hong Kong film that I'm not going to reveal, but sort of keeping in that direction as well. And I think both picks are quite unexpected and quite, again, play with established genres or established aesthetics in a way that is very, very interesting. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, yeah, we're working on working on a pretty big Japanese project from a filmmaker that you know and that you love, that most people know and love. That is certainly alone in his category, and we're really ecstatic that we made that work. And yeah, that should be, maybe end of year into the next year, something like that. Yeah, really stoked.
Very nice. That's awesome. I can't say enough great things about Kani, and I will continue to ring this bell. As I alluded to earlier, there are many people that follow along with my page that are gigantic fans. I reached out to some of my patrons for questions, and some of these came from them because they are so impassioned on this label. So just
Excellent.
realize that your work from around the world is affecting a lot of people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. Thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. I appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good week. We'll talk soon, hopefully.
You too. Bye.